This week, my lead story from the archaeological news is that Monk's Mound at the ancient Cahokia site may have been surrounded by water throughout the time it was in use. Join me as I discuss this story and many more that have caught my attention over the past few days. New study finds Cahokia's Plazas were not meeting places after all. The results of a new paleo-environmental analysis of the ancient North American city of Cahokia has been published in the journal World Archeology. For many years, archaeologists have referred to the 4 open rectangular spaces surrounding the huge earthwork known as Monk's Mound as plazas, essentially public meeting areas. However, according to Phys.org, the latest study carried out by geoarchaeologist Caitlin Rankin has found that the North Plaza was probably inundated by water from the surrounding creeks all year round, so it's not possible for it to have been a meeting area after all. Cahokia sits on a floodplain beneath the confluence of the Mississippi and Illinois rivers, and the North Plaza is at a particularly low elevation. The recent study analysed sediment cores around the North Plaza and the surrounding area to work out isotope reference points for different types of environments, such as wetlands. These were then compared to ancient soils. The results showed that during the time Cahokia was active, the North Plaza was wet for most, if not all, of the year. This new study doesn't confirm the function of the plazas, but it does change the impression we have of them. It's likely that water played an important role for the inhabitants of Cahokia, both in practical and ritualistic terms. For example, it's known that wetland plants were grown for food, rivers were used for trade, and creation stories included the water, sky, and earth. So the water surrounding Monk's Mound probably had a function related to the complex relationship the inhabitants had with water. Only 1% of Cahokia has been excavated so far, and this latest research adds to the mystery of this, the largest archaeological site in North America. Intriguing find discovered in Structure 27 at the Ness of Brodgar. A recent online diary entry on the Ness of Brodgar excavation website outlined some tantalising finds at the building referred to as Structure 27. Archaeology students from Willamette University in Oregon digging at Trench T have found yellow clay, the role of which isn't clear. Up until now, similar clay at other parts of the site had been interpreted as belonging to floors. However, the experts think the yellow clay in Structure 27 may be a sealing deposit, meaning something lies underneath it. Another piece of evidence which points to the building running further underground is that of the long, recumbent stones running along the edges of this building. Only a narrow section is visible above ground. Such long but narrow stones could not have been successfully quarried without breaking, so they must be much wider than they appear, meaning a significant portion probably runs underground. A small trench will be dug alongside one of the stones to see how deep they go. The Ness of Brodgar website is a brilliant resource for those of you who want to follow the dig, understand more about what's been discovered so far, or arrange an appointment to visit. I've put a link in the description below. County Sligo's passage tombs may be listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in future. According to the Sligo Champion, the Neolithic passage tombs which cover the Sligo County landscape have been added to a tentative list of World Heritage Sites in Ireland, which replaces the previous list compiled in 2010. The next step of the process to be recognised as a UNESCO World Heritage Site can take anything between 3 to 5 years and requires nomination documentation, including a management plan and a public consultation. This ancient ritual landscape is the most westerly set of megalithic tombs and includes the Carrow Moor and Carrow Keel complexes. 30 megalithic monuments are still extant at Carrow Moor and 21 at Carrow Keel. Other sites which have been added to the tentative list for Ireland are the Transatlantic Cable Ensemble and the Royal Sites of Ireland. The latter include Dun Éilinn, the Hill of Ishna, the Rock of Cashel, Rathcroghan and Tara. Modern herpes variants may have a common ancestor linked to Bronze Age migrations. According to The Guardian, a recent report in Science Advances has found that certain modern-day variants of herpes have a common ancestor which dates to the Bronze Age. Ancient DNA from around 3,000 archaeological sites was analysed by researchers who found the herpes simplex infection in 4 individuals. It's the first time ancient DNA has been used to search for the virus. Today, herpes simplex, which causes cold sores, infects around 4 billion people around the world and is known to be millions of years old. However, this study has helped to pinpoint modern-day variants as dating to the Bronze Age, a time when mass migrations took place from Eurasia to Europe. The researchers also suggest that the cultural practice of kissing may have been transmitted to Europe with the migrations, further amplifying the spread of the virus. A Bronze Age manuscript from South Asia is the earliest text referring to the practice of kissing, which is why experts think the cultural practice may have originated there. The researchers have plans to find more ancient herpes DNA, including in Neanderthals, to help to get a clearer picture of its genetic history. Bronze Age artefacts from Must Farm temporarily displayed at Flag Fen. The BBC reports that Bronze Age artefacts from the Must Farm quarry in Cambridgeshire were put on display at the nearby Flag Fen site as part of its Festival of Archaeology. Must Farm is a Bronze Age settlement dating to between 1000 and 800 BCE, which consisted of round wooden houses on stilts. Artefacts excavated from the site include sickles, axes, and spears. A fire destroyed the stilts at some point in the settlement's history, causing the houses to fall into the river. Fortunately, the silt helped with preservation. Log boats have also been excavated from Must Farm in the past. The nearby archaeological park of Flag Fen, which displayed the artefacts, is open to the public and is the site of a Bronze Age settlement as well. At Flag Fen, excavations during the 1980s discovered an impressive 1 kilometre long causeway across the fenland that was probably used for ceremonial purposes, as well as many ritual deposits in the water surrounding it, including swords, brooches, and earrings. Lactose tolerance in humans was probably driven by famine and disease. Experts have known for some time that it took thousands of years after the advent of dairy farming for humans to develop the ability to digest milk. However, they didn't know why. A new study published in the journal Nature analysed pottery sherds and ancient human genomes to try to explain how lactose tolerance, known as lactase persistence, became prevalent in Europe. Previously, experts thought that maybe cows, goats, and sheep had been domesticated primarily for their meat, with milk not becoming a factor until thousands of years later, the time when lactose tolerance then became widespread. However, milk fat residues on ancient pottery sherds show that it was consumed right at the beginning of animal domestication, but genome studies show that these early farmers were still lactose intolerant. It took around 5,000 years before lactase persistence in humans appeared. The researchers also found that there are no clear health or fertility benefits from consuming milk that would favour natural selection for the gene that enables lactase persistence. They also found that modern-day lactose-intolerant people still prefer fresh milk over other alternatives. This is probably because lactose intolerance doesn't often cause debilitating symptoms and probably wouldn't have done in ancient times either. However, lactose intolerance would have been much more serious in people suffering from famine or ill health. Therefore, the researchers suggest that lactase persistence may have become widespread due to famine and disease, since it conferred benefits on populations struggling through such times. Unfortunately, there are still factors that cannot be explained by this model, so further research will take the findings from this study and do more analyses on archaeological data and ancient human genomes. That's it. So what do you think? The idea that Monk's Mound at Cahokia was surrounded by water makes so much sense to me for several reasons. Water cults and their associated rituals seem to have been really important to many ancient cultures, whether we're talking about Bronze Age Germany, the Nuragic culture in Sardinia, or the ancient Romans. Water played a central role in their belief systems. Let's not forget that in the ancient Egyptian creation myth, a mound arose from the primordial waters as well. I've been following the work of the independent researcher Robert Langdon for many years, but I only sat down and read his books all the way through last year. In the post-glacial flooding hypothesis, the Stonehenge enigma, and Dawn of the Lost Civilization, he makes a good argument for there having been an ancient water network stretching across the UK, which surrounded ancient monuments. I mean, I'm putting it very simply, so if you want to find out more, I've put a link to Robert's website below. Whilst I don't agree with all of the conclusions he makes, I do think there's something to it. Matt from Ancient Architects has also mentioned the links he's found with water courses and megalithic sites. For example, in his video, Doggerland and Ancient Britain, the story so far. And I'm sure there are other researchers who have done some interesting work in this area, even if I can't think of them off the top of my head. Water could be key to many of the mysteries in the ancient world. We need water to survive, we need it for transportation, and the watery landscape has changed significantly since the last glacial maximum of the most recent ice age. Malta is literally full of enormous dry valleys that were once gushing with rivers when it was part of a larger landmass connected to Sicily. Water and humanity's relationship with it should not be underestimated. This isn't to say Cahokia was necessarily connected to other sites worldwide, but it could be that the role water played in the lives of the ancients became a sort of archetype for cultural practices that evolved independently from one another. This area of research fascinates me, so I will take some time to read more about it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Sources are in the description below. Please hit the like button. Come and find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram if you want more ancient history content. I'm also on Patreon, so thank you very much to my patrons. Also, take a look at my website for more information on the sites I visit myself and the articles that I write, megalithhunter.com.